Jarrell Miller versus Gerald Washington. This is my final thoughts and prediction video. Now, I agree with the observation of most people that Gerald Washington appears to have the better boxing skills. From the Washington fights that I've watched, and I've watched a lot of his fights. I saw him against Wilder. I saw him against Mansour. He also fought, God, what's that guy's name? That little short Dominican chubby heavyweight. His name escapes me at the moment. I saw that fight. I saw his fight against Eddie Chambers. So I've seen several Gerald Washington fights. I've also seen a lot of Jarrell Miller's fights. And again, from what I've seen, Gerald Washington appears to have the more sound fundamentals and the better boxing skills. He's taller by a couple of inches. I'm not sure what the reach is like. He's also the more cut and athletic looking of the two fighters. So yeah, he appears to have the better boxing skills. He certainly boxed well against Wilder until he got caught. But one thing about Gerald Washington which alarms me is whenever he's put under pressure by a fighter, he hasn't responded well. Nagy Aguilera is the guy I was thinking about, the short, chubby Dominican fighter. He struggled with Nagy Aguilera. A lot of people believe Gerald Washington actually lost that Nagy Aguilera fight. If you can find footage of that fight, go watch it. Nagy Aguilera gives him all he can handle. Also, the Amir Mansour fight. I believe that fight was actually a draw. Was it a draw or a split decision for Washington? I think it was a draw. I keep forgetting the result of that fight, but it was close and controversial. That's what I do remember. And I also remember that Washington was boxing well in the first half of that fight and winning. But when Mansour gritted his teeth and put the pedal to the metal and started really applying pressure, Washington went into his shell. You know, he didn't want to engage. He didn't want to fight for his respect. He just allowed Mansour to kind of bully him around the ring. And Mansour is a significantly smaller man. So I didn't like that from Gerald Washington. He managed to outbox Eddie Chambers. I mean, I felt like he could have imposed himself a little bit more in Eddie Chambers. Don't get it twisted. He did enough to win. He won the fight hands down. But with a much smaller guy like that, you would have at least liked to see him impose himself on Chambers towards the end of the fight a little bit. But he didn't do that. And Chambers looked like the hunter in that fight. Can you imagine Chambers looking like a hunter when he's really a big cruiserweight? That's what Eddie Chambers is. And Washington is a big 6'6", 240-pound heavyweight. But yet, Chambers, who's not known as a big puncher, was the one hunting Washington down. So there's something about the mentality of Washington that worries me a bit about him. Now, he says that he's learned from the Deontay Wilder fight. He's gained from that experience. And one thing which I think he may have gained more from rather than the Wilder experience was sparring Vladimir Klitschko. Because he's been over in Germany doing a lot of rounds with Vladimir. So I think he would have gained from that in terms of confidence and whatnot, and maybe learning some technique from Vladimir. But Vladimir is a guy who will take his time. He's not a guy who really will put you under immense pressure straight away. Washington's the kind of guy who likes a boxing match. He likes it when you're playing chess with him. When you're putting the pressure on him, again, from what I've seen, he don't react particularly well. Jarrell Miller, best believe, is going to apply plenty of pressure. He's going to be trying to put that big 300-pound frame all over Gerald Washington at every opportunity. He's going to be trying to put them big old Brooklyn hands all upside Washington's head. Miller is he a pressure fighter? Maybe. He's kind of I wouldn't say he's an out-and-out pressure fighter, but he applies pressure in a lot of his fights. And he's a very, very big man, 300 pounds. Obviously, it's not all muscle, but he's a very big, strong man. According to him, he's never been dropped or down or stopped or anything like that, even when he was a kickboxer. So perhaps we should assume he's fairly tough, or at least tough enough to take what Gerald Washington can dish out, maybe. I just think that Jarrell Miller, in terms of his personality, will be able to impose himself on Gerald Washington in this fight. And if Gerald Washington is to win the fight, I do believe it will be in the second half or on points. I think early on, I mean, it depends how Gerald Washington wants to approach it. If he wants to come out fast, I think he'll give... Sorry, it depends how Jarrell Miller wants to approach it. If he wants to come out fast and put Washington under pressure straight away, I think he'll have success straight away. But if he wants to bide his time, then he might give Washington some early rounds and then maybe try and press it down the stretch. And if he basically what I'm saying is, whenever Jarrell Miller decides that he wants to apply pressure in this fight, I think he's going to have success. I do. I think he's going to have success. Washington is quite sharp at long range with his right hand and his jab. I remember him landing some pretty nice shots on Amir Mansour early in that fight and bloodying Mansour's mouth. But, you know, Jarrell Miller is a lot taller and bigger than Amir Mansour, probably a lot physically stronger. So it will be easier for Jarrell Miller to get to Washington than it was for Mansour. So, an interesting fight. And I wouldn't be surprised if either man won. The outcome which would surprise me the most is Washington by KO. Now, Jarrell Miller has been saying that he's been a little ill in the build-up to this fight. So maybe he's preparing an excuse. I don't know. But he has been saying in this camp, he's been ill a few times. So we have to bear that in mind. That could lead to him getting stopped potentially if he's not 100% in terms of his strength. But yeah, that outcome would, in my mind, be the least likely. Jarrell Miller getting stopped, unless it's very late. Maybe he gets cut or something like that. I personally think if someone's getting stopped, it's going to be Washington. If the fight goes to points, I wouldn't be surprised if either man won it on points. But the outcome I'm going to go for, the thing that in my mind is slightly more likely than the other outcomes, and I mean slightly, because again, I wouldn't be surprised who won this fight. But I am picking a winner. I do have a slight inkling about who I think is going to win. And I think it's going to be Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Yeah, I think Miller's going to take the fight. I just think that mentally, Washington is not as confident as he needs to be. And remember, he's coming off a loss. Yes, it was against Deontay Wilder for the heavyweight title, but it was still a loss. He still has the demons of that loss floating around in his head. He hasn't had some fights in the meantime to get back to his winning ways and build his confidence back up. And he's already quite a timid character anyway, before losing to Deontay Wilder. So I'm going with the guy with the more powerful personality and the guy who does have the better inside skills, the guy who does apply pressure. And I've seen Washington not react very well under pressure. And I'm talking about physical pressure. I'm not talking about the magnitude of an event. I'm talking about a guy in the ring pushing you back and forcing you into a dogfight. From what I've seen, Washington don't react very well when he's in situations like that. So for those reasons, I'm taking the big baby to win this fight. And I'm going to say that he's going to stop Gerald Washington. Yeah, I'm picking Big Baby Miller to actually stop Gerald Washington. Am I revising my prediction on the fly here? Am I going to say Jarrell Miller on points? See, the thing is, Jarrell Miller is not the quickest guy in the world. And he is big at 300 pounds. Can he get Washington out of there? Is Washington savvy enough to avoid the big bombs of Miller? Because yeah, Deontay Wilder caught him. But Deontay Wilder's a hell of a lot quicker of hand than Jarrell Miller. He's a lot lighter on his feet. His punches are a lot more sudden than Miller's punches. So I'm not sure Miller will be able to catch Washington out of the blue the way Wilder caught him. So I'm kind of deliberating right now about whether it's going to be Miller on points or Miller by late mid to late round KO. I'm not sure. It just depends how savvy Washington is and how well he holds up under Miller's assaults. And he's strong too, Washington. You know, he's not one of these other guys that Miller's been fighting that are not as big as him. Washington may not be as big in terms of body weight, but he's very tall. I'm not sure. Man, I'm not sure, but I'm going to pick Miller anyway. Whatever result it is, whether he knocks Washington out or beats him on points, I'm going to pick Miller. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I don't see a blowout for either man. But I'm going to just edge towards Jarrell Miller winning the fight. I'm not sure what method. Maybe he's going to stop him late or win a scrappy fight on points. This fight could be scrappy because you've got two very big men here. And you've got one guy in Miller who's going to try and get on the inside as soon as possible. That could create a scrappy situation because Gerald Washington don't like to fight on the inside. So what's he going to do? He's going to hold or attempt to hold, and Miller's going to be trying to shrug him off and get shots off, and Miller's not particularly quick. So, yeah, it could be a scrappy affair, but hopefully it's entertaining. So, yeah, I'm taking Jarrell Miller anyway. Let me know who you think is going to win in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.